Hi there everyone. Today we're looking at the miter joint. It's a way of producing a very decorative join with two pieces of wood. In order to produce a right angle joint, we first need to mark out the miters on each piece of wood. First of all, we're going to measure the width of the wood. Mark this distance from the end of the wood. If I use my tri-square at this point to square the line across, I should end up with a perfect square marked out at the end. If I join up two opposite corners of this square, I'll have what's called a diagonal. This is a 45-degree line. Here I'm marking on the waste wood. These lines tell me that this piece of wood will be removed eventually. Just to recap, 46mm wide and 46mm tall. To help us cut accurately and straight, we're going to use a miter block. You can see the slots in the plastic. This one lets me do 5 different angles. This is the one I'm after, 45 degrees. I'm going to cut with my panel saw. It's going to rest in these grooves along this line. If I didn't have a miter block, of course I could use a G-clamp and clamp a scrap piece of wood along the line. This gives me the same effect. It's just a helping hand, keep your cut nice and straight. We must repeat this on both ends of all 4 bits of wood. Another way I can cut a miter is using my sled set at 45 degrees on my table saw. And here's the finished miter, a simple butt joint glued together. So how can we practice our miter joint? I know. Let's upcycle this old mirror I found in the shed. It's looking a bit sorry for itself. Could do with a new frame. Oh, and the less said about the back the better. Even Barrett doesn't think that much of it. Okay, first off, let's take the back off. Just some small screws that are easily removed. Here we can see the first rebate we need to replicate that the back sits in. As safety is our first concern, we must wear gloves when removing the glass. Now we can see the second rebate we must replicate, the rebate the glass itself sits in. Let's clean up the mirror, see what sort of condition it's in. Lots of dirt has built up around the edges. I think it's going to look quite good. Here are 4 small oak boards I'm going to use for our new frame. Notice they still have the natural edge from the tree. This is called a wane edge. The outside inch or so is called the sapwood. We're going to cut that off with a table saw. Remember folks, hands 300mm away from the blade at all times. Let's tidy up that edge with the jack plane. Our next step is to get all 4 pieces of the frame the exact same thickness. We could use a jack plane for this, but I'm going to use my planer thicknesser instead. Here I'm adjusting my thicknesser to the size of the thickest piece of wood. I must repeat this process until all 4 pieces of wood are the exact same thickness. Here you can see what just a handy tool the planer thicknesser is. Next I'm going to draw on my miters with this tool. It's called a sliding bevel. I'm going to set it for 45 degrees using this set square. Always double check that it hasn't moved. Perfect. Now transfer this 45-degree angle to each of your pieces of oak, on each of the ends. I could cut this with my miter block and panel saw, but instead I'm going to use my radial arm saw. Repeat for all of your miters. Now I'm going to work on the router table. I'm going to cut a double rebate, the first for the mirror itself to sit in. Having adjusted the fence, I'm now going to cut a second rebate for the back to sit in. This will allow the mirror to sit flush against the wall. Here you can see the two rebates quite clearly. We're going to have to strengthen this joint. Let's put a biscuit in it. Simply mark a position for the biscuit, roughly in the centre of the joint. Using our biscuit jointer, we're going to line this little triangle up with the line that we drew on our oak mitre. Repeat this process for all four corners of the frame. We will use 4 biscuits to join the frame together, one in each corner. Here I'm pointing to the direction of the grain. You can see the grains running perpendicular to each other at the corner of the frame. That's why I choose to sand at this stage. It's much easier to sand these pieces before they're stuck together. I can give it a final light sand when it is stuck together, but here I'm getting off most of the marks and certainly all the pencil marks. I'm going to clamp the frame together using 4 sash clamps. First up, dry clamping without glue. If all 4 joints look good, I'm going to take it apart, apply glues to the mitre and the biscuits and reclamp. Always wipe off any glue that's squeezed out with a damp cloth. The following morning I can take it out of the clamps and give it a final light sanding. After I've wiped the dust off, I can give it a couple of coats of wax. When the wax is dry, I'll turn it upside down, carefully refit the mirror and fit a new back with some small screws. After fitting 2 mirror hangers, it's ready to hang on the wall. I definitely think it's an improvement.